Hi YouTube, this is Bonnie with Old Souled Mermaid again with the second video in my deck collection series. And this one is for decks that are beginner slash intermediate. So it's like if you've gone, my first video was with beginner decks. This video is going to be, okay, you're at that point where you can kind of diverge a little farther and get into some other decks, slightly more advanced. Some of these are going to be, direct clones, but with a lot, the imagery is so different. And so let's get right to it. So this is like beginner intermediate decks. I would say, but we all learn at different levels. So by no means, don't take what I say, as gospel. It's everybody, it's like go with what you're attracted to. Go with the deck that you're attracted to. Go with what feels right with you. I tend to like to learn things in steps. And as far as, the imagery, so I take a methodical way of learning, but, if you're drawn to something, by all means, go for it. So again, these are beginner slash intermediate. When you're just starting, you're done with the RWS, you're done with like the obvious clone decks. This is when you're ready to spread your wings just a little bit. So the first deck is going to be one of my favorites of all time. It's just my favorite, and I'm thinking about getting a second one because I never want to be without it. And that's going to be the Dark Mansion Tarot. This is an RWS clone, but with very different imagery. It's kind of known in the community as the Tim Burton deck because you'll see why in just a minute. It comes in a very nice sturdy two-piece box. It's by Taroteka Studio. I believe they're in Poland, so it does take a little bit to get your deck, but this has been like one of the top decks of the last year or two. And it came in various editions, like a super one that came in a wooden box, a larger edition, and now they went into their second printing. This is the first printing. So these are the backs. These are a beautiful rose petal cardstock, wonderful, wonderful, and it comes with black edges. Now, if you're a beginner, this might look, oh my gosh, not very RWS, but if you look closely, it is an RWS clone, very closely. It just has the artwork for the people. And there's the Fool, who's an actual clown in this deck. But it still has, the classic imagery of the RWS. But it's kind of, got, Tim Burton had nothing to do with this artwork, but it does have that feel. It reminds me, there's a couple of cards that remind me of my childhood and the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland. So this would be a very good deck to stretch your wings with. Now see, this creature right here reminds me of something out of Nightmare Before Christmas. But it's something to stretch your wings with. Or, if you feel drawn to it and you feel the calling to this deck, it would be a good one to begin with because it does have all the symbology for the most part of an RWS deck. I think the queens in here are just exceptionally beautiful. The images are so vibrant and alive, which I personally don't get with the RWS deck. And this might be a good alternative for you, even if you're a beginner. It could be. But, you know, I would suggest, I have my video of the ones I think that are really, really good as a beginner. But, you know, as I said, we all learn, again, traditional imagery here. This reminds me of the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland. Again, traditional. But I love the Victorian. Yeah, these would be Victorian instead of medieval imagery. Gothic, you could say. Whimsical Gothic, I would say. And this is one of my favorite decks of all time. Very much used. And I would say a great deck for a beginner or beginner intermediate. It depends what kind of learner you are. You know, if you want to go and start with the traditional RWS, like I've said in my other video, you know, a lot of learned tarot books are going to have the traditional RWS cards, the artwork in it, and that's why it's good to have at least one deck of that, I think, and for classes and for learning. But, you know, if you really don't like it, look at this. All right, so that's the first one, the Dark Mansion Tarot. The second one, I do have a list. I'm going to try to go in order. Tarot. The Tarot Muha. So if you're a beginner going towards the intermediate, this is a nice top. You got to be kind of careful because if you pick up your box, you know, it's going to spill all over the place or you're going to dent your box. So you really got to pick it up here. Oh, I wanted to say with the Dark Mansion Tarot, the only place you can get it is off the Taroteca Studio website. And that's the only place you can get it. You can't get it off of Amazon. But this deck, the Tarot Muha, you can get off of Amazon, and that's where I got my deck. It comes with this nice little white book. I will mention the Dark Mansion Tarot does not come with any book of any kind, but you saw the pictures, very traditional. You don't really need it. The Tarot Muha comes with this little book, and this is by, this is a Lo Scarabeo deck. So some of it is going to be in English, and some of it's going to be in Spanish and Italian, I think. So, you know, it's a little chunky little book, but it's, you know, not all going to be in English. So, and there are spreads in here. I think there are a couple of spreads. Yeah, sample readings. So there is, in English, 71 pages in the book. And this is kind of a glossy cardstock, but very nice. Look at the beautiful backs. Can you see that? And this is based on the artwork of an actual artist, kind of in the Art Deco period. And his last name was Muha, and I can't remember for the life of me his first name. Why don't we look it up? Okay, an extraordinary tribute to the art of Alphonse Muha and to the tarot masters of the past. So the artwork is Julia F. Masaglia, colors by Barbara Nocenzo. I'm sorry if I butchered that. But yes, look at this gorgeous, traditional, except we've got a woman as a magician. But look how, if you love ethereal and pretty and just feminine and gorgeous, this does have a very feminine feel, even though there are males in here in the traditional like Hierophant, Emperor, the Lover's card. I just love the Chariot. These colors are just beautiful, beautiful warm colors, but not garish. But the Hermit here is a woman. regular tarot sized. If you like something that's just pretty and just gorgeous and feminine, but with the traditional imagery, you would have no problem, I would say, excuse me, even learning on this deck. If RWS, the traditional decks, aren't, you know, in your wheelhouse. But this is just beyond gorgeous of a deck. And you will notice that they have rather the numbers and not the names. So this would be the Devil and the Tower. So you can tell what the images are. They don't have anything depicting the names. But you can tell that's the Sun card. The one thing most people don't like about this deck is this scary Judgment card. There's nothing wrong with the card except for the scary eyes on the angel. Yeah. But it reads very well, and it's a very good deck for beginners or slash verging on the intermediate. You would have no problems getting meanings off of this deck. Again, see the Seven of Cups, very traditional. So that is the Tarot Muha. I would highly suggest for a beginner slash intermediate reader. But again, if you feel called to start out and start reading as a beginner with this deck, go for it. It would be totally doable. It is pretty much an RWS clone. In its, not really the artwork, but the symbolism that's depicted. The next one, along the same lines, Art Deco. This is the Ethereal Visions Illuminated Tarot deck by Matt Hughes. It comes in a 2-part box. See the beautiful cream and gold and then the green on the back of the box. This is a US Games deck, and you can get this and the Tarot Muha off of Amazon. It's readily available, reasonably priced. The beautiful backs, a nice sturdy cardstock with this deck. It's cream, purple, green, and you see the gold embossing. I think this originally came out as a indie deck, a Kickstarter, and then it went mass market. The Magician, a High Priestess. Do you see how beautiful this is? So again, kind of along the same line. Do you see that gold foil in there? Art Deco artwork. But again, if you're into pretty, again, a very good reader. It has been for me. The Lovers. I rotate out my decks, so some of these you'll find in order, and some of them they are not. When I'm putting them away and they're not in my rotation, I put them back in order. It's just a thing. Strength. Just a gorgeous, 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 gorgeous deck in every way. And it's mass market too. It's, you know, indie deck quality. The only thing you know it's missing is maybe some edging, but you know, the cardstock is great. Gold foiling on the fronts. The, you know, 2-piece box. It's got them cutouts on the side. That is a marvelous death card. I think a beginner could start reading with this if you wanted to, but I would say beginner slash edging towards intermediate. That's just my opinion. If you feel called, again, go to it. Go for it. And it does come with a little white book. astrological correspondent, upright, reversed meanings, and just a little paragraph. There's no pictures of the cards themselves, but this is just a little white book that has, oh yeah, and the minors just have keywords, no paragraph really to describe them, just keywords. But again, you don't really need it if you're, you got a good tarot book or 2 or 3. You'll be able to, or you're ultra familiar with the RWS system by now. You won't have a problem. All right, what is next on my list? Oh, this has been a cult favorite, fan favorite, the Fountain Tarot. This I would say would be more intermediate. I mean, you could start learning with it if you feel called to it. Like I said, we all learn it different. But for me, this would be edging towards, I've got a good basis on RWS. I'm ready to move on. These are the backs. This is the Fountain Tarot. And beautiful cardstock, nice sturdy cardstock. We hope the Fountain Tarot brings you joy, clarity, and inspiration. And here are the creators, publisher, writers. You can follow them on Instagram. It's got a nice, I like the textured of feeling of kind of a linen finish on the little white book. Goes into the major arcana, minor arcana, some spreads. You get a nice amount of meanings. No pictures in the books because it is very, small, narrow, but you get a meaning and a reversal. And for the same for the minors. So it is a very nice little white book. These pictures, why I say they're a little more esoteric, a little bit more modern. And that's why I would say that it would be more, you could read it as a beginner. I probably wouldn't set out to have this one to learn on right off the bat, but we're all individual. If you're called to it, go for it. But personally for me, it took a little bit of work with this, because there is and there isn't traditional imagery in this. It does have borders, the magician. It's very, very modern. So if you love a modern aesthetic, this is your deck. If you're in the beginning and you're more intermediate, ready to jump off that cliff and to go into more cards that will make you think and work and study the imagery, really delve into the imagery. This is kind of a soft, I would say the images are quite soft, so it delivers, hard messages in a kind way. Do you see what I mean? It's very, very modern. So I personally, this wouldn't have been one that I would have chosen to learn with right off the bat, but it is, if you are called to it, it is a great deck. I mean, the images on a lot of these are haunting. I love this. This is one of my favorite death cards. I hope all of it, the colors are showing up. This devil is wonderful. And so is this tower. You see how modern, minimalistic. So again, if you are called to modern minimalistic art, and this is a mass market deck, you can get it off Amazon, a bookstore. It's got silver edging, comes with that. Very easy to get, very accessible. Nice ribbon in the box. It is a wonderful, wonderful deck. All right, let's go on. Moving on. I want to make sure I get this all in. What is next on the list? Okay, this one. This is the Darkness of Light Tarot. And if you go on the Darkness of Light Tarot website, you do, the bag was $3 extra. I believe I paid, and this is, it comes with instructions. The best way to open the tuck box. It just comes in a regular tuck box. I hate tuck boxes. They don't. But it's telling you to open it up. The best way is to open it up with a butter knife. I don't have a butter knife. I do try to open it with something. Scissors, butter knife, and it's signed. This is the 3rd edition. The 1st edition came with some printing arrows on the titles of the cards. Then they did a 2nd edition. The 1st and the 2nd edition had black border, well, like borders and backings, and I was late to the party, and by the time I found this deck, it was in a 3rd printing, and they had changed it to the white, but I've learned to like it. You know, at first I was kind of disappointed, but I got it anyway because the images just drew me in. But I find this is a very muted deck in the colors, in the color palette, and I find that the colors, I think, pop better with the white than it does with the black. That's just my opinion. I would like to try to get a black version too, and I think sometimes he has on his website like slightly damaged, you know, 1st or 2nd editions, and I might try to pick up one of those. I don't know if he still has them, but you could definitely start reading with this if you were drawn to it as a beginner. It doesn't come with a little white book. It does come with a larger book, a soft cover book for $10, I think, which I did buy with this. But it is haunting imagery. I just love this imagery. It is traditional of the RWS meanings. Very close, pretty close as a clone. So I would say if you wanted to start reading with this as a beginner, I think you could. I just put it in the beginner / verging towards intermediate, because I've gotten some, while reading with this, I've gotten some pretty confronting messages with this deck. And that's why I kind of put it towards, you know, kind of like hedging towards intermediate because of the messages I consistently got with this deck. It's kind of dark. It kind of verges towards, I would use this for shadow work, definitely. And that's why I kind of put it, you know, more intermediate, even though you could start reading off the bat with the images. You know, you can totally tell what they are. And this is Italian. The titles are in Italian, but, you know, you can, from the pictures, you can tell what it is. And like I said, it does come with well, you have to buy the companion book extra, but it's nice, linen-y, textured cardstock, and it's just sumptuous. The imagery and the feel of the cards, and yeah, definitely you could learn to read with this deck. But like I said, I put it more towards intermediate because of my experience with it. And that's the messages I got with it, the kind of readings I got with it. So it's muted pinks and blues and grays. Isn't she beautiful? Yeah, this is a favorite of many. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful deck. And this is a 3rd edition. I think it's still available on the website, darknessoflight.tarot.com. And I would say that it's worth getting the guidebook if you can. But if not, you could totally read. If you are well versed in RWS, you could read without it. And this little bag I just bought because it was only $3, a little muslin bag. Okay, moving on. And that was the Darkness of Light Tarot. And what is next on my... Okay, this is a fun little deck. And it's easily available at a local Barnes & Noble or Amazon. It's a mass market deck. Though I will say that I don't know about where you are, what region you are. Barnes & Noble was taken over by a different company. I think a British company. And they are kind of redoing things, and I've noticed in my 2 local Barnes & Nobles that they are having fewer and fewer decks on their shelves. Very few decks. They used to have, you know, a bookcase full of decks, and now they don't. It's very, very minimal. I was just there over the weekend, and I was like shocked at how little they had. And that was both of my Barnes & Nobles in my area. So I don't know, it's something to look out for, be on the lookout for, you know. And let me know in the comments if you've noticed that at your local B&N, or if it's just something in Austin, or, you know, I don't know, a fluke. Let me know in the comments if you've noticed that. Mystic Mondays Tarot by Grace Dwan. And many of you are familiar with this if you're into tarot, but if you're a newbie, this is a really nice, chunky little book. And there is an app you can get. I think it's free. Nice free app. You can get daily card pulls. You've got a nice paragraph and keywords. And a tiny, 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 tiny image of the card. And again, with the minors, look, there's 2 pages for this. So it's a great little guidebook. It is the only thing I'm not crazy about is it's so glossy, but you know, I can get over it. I like matte cardstock. But it does come with these beautiful gilded silver edges, great for a mass market deck. These wonderful, wonderful backings. But you can see modern images, minimalistic, very minimalistic imagery, but you can tell still follows the RWS system. So I would say just for the minimalism, veering towards intermediate, but like I said, if you're called to this, go for it. You know, a beginner can definitely read with it. You know, I did. So definitely bright colors, very modern, simplistic. The people don't have faces, and some might find that kind of creepy, but I don't. I just love this. Reminds me of, like, I would take this deck if I was going on a beach vacation, because it just it has that vibe. I love this Chariot card. Whee! But I do love this deck, and I have the app too. Oh, anything with a mermaid. Love it. So very modern, very simple, minimalistic, bright colors, but it does have some traditional symbolism and imagery. So no faces. That's double card. Love that double card. And this tower card. And look at that simple star. It's so beautiful. So that is the Mystic Mondays Tarot, a deck for the modern mystic. It's got this cool kind of geometric box. Mass market. If you want it, go to Amazon, or if you can find it at your local Barnes & Noble, go for it. It's got nice silver, nice designed box. Very, very nice box for a mass market deck. And there you can see the back. All right, so moving right along. Okay, what's next on my list is going to be, all right, the Bad Bitches Tarot by Ethany Dawn. This is an indie deck which you have to get. As far as I know, it's only available on her website. Ethany.com. It's a beautiful magnetic closure, nice gold foiling on the box, matte rose petal finish, beautiful inside. Look at those backs. Beautiful, beautiful. Now, I would say you have to make sure your hands are clean when you're working with this deck, because it is very, very white with the gold foiling, and you've got light colored fronts. She does have some spreads in this book. The writing is quite tiny, but you know, it has to be for the little white book. Now, she has, for each card, like for instance, this is the Hierophant. She has the bear meaning, boudoir meaning, business, bank, and the blocked meaning, which I think is so wonderful. So this is a really special little white book. She kind of follows, she covers her bases. I have the second edition. There's a first edition, and I know that some of the cards have been changed. The edging is a beautiful matte rose gold finish, and if you get this deck off her website, you will get access to a free class regarding this deck. So you could start out as a beginner with this deck, because she goes over the card meanings in that class, and it's part of her Tarot Readers Academy, but you get free access to it if you buy this deck off her website, Ethany.com. And this is the second edition. And not a lot of the cards have changed, but some of them have, and I don't have the first edition, so I can't tell you which ones those were. But she has a video on YouTube, which you can totally see what has changed. But this is a purely feminine deck, modern aesthetic, modern clothing, a little bit fashiony, but high energy, high energy. And so wonderful. It's diverse as far as race and body size. Look at that. I would say it's not quite diverse as far as age. And I see, except for right here, I know this card, you know, she looks closer to my age. You know, the 3 generations here, I love it. And I think card creators are getting better with diversity, with gender, with body type, with race. But the thing that they're missing is age. And and that's one thing I notice. They'll throw in, there might be a token one, you know, a token old person thrown in here and there. But, you know, deck creators out there, you know, I'd like, in the Hierophant, you know, and it's funny because, you know, all the influencers and the people I follow, like on Instagram and YouTube, they're all around this age. And that's one reason why I wanted to start my channel, was because I'm 52 and I see a few channels like Kelly Fitzgerald, Truth and Story, who's, I think she's about almost exactly my age, who's, you know, big in the community, does well with her videos. I look at all her videos and her video reviews, but there's not a lot of us around that age group. And it's because, I don't know, I think there's a societal, I don't know, feeling that we're kind of pushed to the side after you reach a certain age. And I think to counteract that, we have to be more vocal. I mean, we do have some wisdom to impart, the older generation. You know, it's not, you know, I told my kids, I have 3 young adult children, you know, I'm telling you this, you know, X, Y, and Z as advice, not because I'm smarter than you, that I believe that I'm smarter than you, but I have been on the planet longer. Everything you've experienced to a certain extent, I've already gone through, been through, done that, felt that. And I love this death card. And I just feel that we do have some wisdom to impart. So I'd like to see us represented. I know there's I have my channel's very small, so I'm not going to be heard. But yeah, if you're watching this, if you're kind of my age demographic, let me know what you think. But yes, this is a. While I was babbling, this deck has a lot. See the lightning on her coat in a, you know, that's found the lightning in a traditional tower card, the Judgment. Do you see the angel? So this is a deck with a modern aesthetic, modern clothing, feminine energy, but it still has the symbolism of the RWS, just in a very modern way. So this is a wonderful deck, beginner, intermediate. I would say more towards intermediate, but since she does have a class, an online class that you can get, if you buy this deck on her website, you could start learning with it. The guidebook, the little white book, is very good. And if you have a traditional, you know, a good tarot book, 2 or 3, yeah, go for it. You could run with this if you're, you know, really going for the, if you're attracted to the modern aesthetic, and everything Ethany does is top notch. All right, babble, 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 blah, blah, blah. What is next on my list? Oh, yes, this is a fun one. Fairly new acquisition to me. All right, this is the Mid-Centurion Tarot by Madame Clara, who put out Madame Clara Sees All, and the new indie 5-cent tarot. And this is the Mid-Centurion. It's a nice box, and it does come with this kind of burlap sack. It comes with it. It just comes in a tuck box, and there's no little white book, no book that comes with it. So you gotta know your tarot meanings with this, or have a very good. I'm having problems opening it right now. Very good grasp on the meanings, and that's why I hate these tuck boxes, and I get mad when they get all banged up and ugly. But at least I have a bag to put it in when this gets thrown away. You see these luscious card backs? They are wonderful. The cardstock, I believe, is 310 GSM. It's a linen finish, both sides. This has whimsical imagery, but it follows the symbolism. It has the symbolism of a RWS system or deck. And these are whimsical and fun. and I haven't had it that long, so I haven't been able to delve into it, but I can see that it's a very affordable. I think it's $32 on Etsy at Motel Gift Shop on Etsy, and it's a wonderful beginner deck. I can see that if you like whimsical imagery and not attracted to the medieval RWS, this could be a deck for you. I love this imagery. I have all three of the Madame Clara decks now. That's why I had to get this one. And they're just top-notch, very reasonably priced for indie decks. So I've seen this deck on, you can get it off of Etsy, you can get it off of Phoenix Lotus website. So you can see traditional imagery, but just in a very whimsical artwork. Mid-centurion, I guess this is to reflect art maybe in the 1950s, 60s. It kind of has some of that vibe to me, especially with the groovy backings. So this is a great one if you're a beginner, or really, oh, it does have this wonderful, it's got 2 extra cards in here, the Unknown and Hand of Mysteries. If you're one to appreciate extra cards, which I do, and I leave them in. But does not have a little book, so you have to have a pretty good background in your meetings, very good book, or taken a class, and this would be a perfect deck. A beginner, but I would say probably hedging towards, you're ready, you've got a good sense of the meanings, and you're ready for some more kind of esoteric imagery, something that makes your mind work. So that's the Mid-Centurion Tarot. Love it, love it, love it. One of my newer acquisitions. Next, we're getting towards the end. Here's the other Madame Clara deck that I mentioned, the 5-cent Tarot. Now, this I would say would be an intermediate deck, just because, oh, I forgot to, it comes with this, if you get it off Etsy, it comes in this beautiful, I think you can choose your color bag, and I got this off of Kickstarter, so it came with a spread cloth, but you can buy the spread cloth on the website separately. But beautiful magnetic closure. Cool box. Ask the cards. The back. You can pick your color and the edgings. I picked the pumice color with the green edging, and those are the backs. It's a beautiful linen finish on both sides, and there's a very little white book. Has an introduction. It goes through the minors first with the matches, teacups, needles, buttons, and majors. And that's why I said this is more an intermediate deck. It doesn't have the traditional wands and pentacles and cups and swords. But I say this is a perfect deck to, while you're straddling that beginner intermediate, you want to go to the intermediate. There are small black and white pictures, by the way, of the cards. So no spreads in the book, but that's okay, because if you look at the cards, you have the meanings. Upright, there's upright meaning, and then it goes for reversals. You have the reverse meaning. So this is the three of needles. So it would be equivalent of swords. And the upright meaning is heartbreak, suffering, sorrow. So on the flip side, the reversal would be forgiveness, moving on, optimism. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted this deck to start reading reversals, to experiment and see how I liked it and how it worked for me in my readings, if it adds any depth, any another layer to my readings, because as of now I haven't been reading with reversals because I think, and I could be wrong, that I get all that I need with the upright, because depending on the spread, on the situation, the reading, the circumstance, I can usually tell what, you know, a reversed or shadow or light meaning would be. But I got this deck to start experimenting. Again, in my beginning video, I got another Madame Clara deck, Madame Clara Sees All, which also has this kind of thing. It has a reverse and upright meanings on the card. So see my other video for that. But these are beautiful. It's got, you know, kind of Victorian pictures, floral and fauna. And I just dig the vibe on this. It's got, yeah, it's just very Victorian vibe. If you like animals, so it's not going to be divisive, you know, there's no people in it. It's items that people use, and then animals. And it has reversed and upright meanings printed right on the cards. So this is a great deck to start. I think when you're starting to straddle, starting to head into the intermediate level of tarot reading. So you can start practicing with your reversals. And since this does not have the typical, you know, buttons or pentacles, you know, it doesn't have the typical suits. This would be a great intermediate deck to start practicing your reversals with. Of course, you can start right from the beginning. Nobody says you have to wait. I'm just starting now to see how I like it. All right, so now this is the next to the last. I think is it the next to the last deck? No. We're going to go through this really fast because most people know this deck. This is the Light Seers Tarot. This is the mass market version. I edged my deck in dark green because this is one of the, some of the cards weren't cut properly, so I just edged it. I have gotten my replacement copy, and I do have the indie version. So this will be my workhorse because it's not precious, but this is a wonderful modern deck. I would say definitely heading into intermediate. But it is Rider-Waite-Smith compatible. And you get that with a lot of the imagery. Some of it veers off a little bit. But this would be, you know, definitely when you're heading off into intermediate territory, this should be like one of the first decks that you grab. The mass market version is nice cardstock, matte finish. They have fixed the problem with the uneven cut cards, so you can get this off of Amazon for like 22 bucks, I believe. You can get it off of Barnes & Noble online. And just Chris Ann just knocked it out of the park with this imagery. Modern but haunting, sometimes whimsical. It's got it all. This deck is every kind of reading. You can do any kind of reading with this deck. It's one of my favorites, and I think it will remain for a very long time. And this is like so beautiful. 3 of Cups. So beautiful. The imagery is diverse for the most part. As far as race and color, it's pretty much on the young side. They don't have a lot. Again, the age demographic is not one of its strong points. And yeah, I wish that would be addressed more, but it's not a make or break. I know that, you know, our society leans towards the youthful culture, youthful beauty, and that's just the way it is. And, you know, sometimes I feel like I'm not being heard my age, but, you know, maybe part of it is we need to speak louder, like I said earlier. So, as you see, yes, very, very beautiful deck. And just because something is, you know, pretty much all the decks are geared towards the youthful imagery, and it's not going to stop me from buying it. Chunky, wonderful little white book. You get the light, seer, and the shadow meaning, and inspirational quote, and one of the best little white books in the market. So next is going into the intermediate. Saucer Beto Tarot. You can get it off of Etsy. I got mine off of Etsy. I don't know if she still has any more. Stasia Burrington, known as the Sassy Burrito. I love the keywords on the lost love, if you can see that. Lore, lust. Glossy cardstock. There's the beautiful backs. Very glossy. But it's fairly traditional and some non-traditional imagery with this. But wow, the readings you could get. It's another one that you just get wonderful, wonderful readings with. It's kind of sticky. Cardstock is very, very glossy. It's not matte. It is gilded in gold. But this is definitely, this and the Light Seers, once you start heading into intermediate territory, these are the 2 decks definitely that you can reach for. Not to say that you can't use them as a beginner, but I'd say you get more out of it waiting a little bit and working with some other of the decks that I've shown you previously and in my beginner video. I love this Emperor. Definitely this and the Light Seers would be ones that I would reach, you know, once you've got a really good grasp on the meanings on the RWS system. You can, this and the Light Seers, wonderful, wonderful readings. Just a basic little white book. This is the creator, and it's, yeah, it does go into reversals. It has a reverse meaning in it. So that is the Saucer Beto Tarot. I've got one more. But this is combination deck collection. So you're looking at my deck collection too. This is the Efflorescent Tarot. And, by Peony Archer. This deck comes in color and black and white, and I opted for the color version, though the backs are black and white. Plasticky, glossy cardstock, which I don't really mind. This is pretty much very close to a Rider-Waite-Smith clone, but just with different imagery. It's got whimsical imagery. See the long fingers, the long arms. I love this deck. A lot of the imagery, the faces are sad. They're not quite as expressive as like the Anna K Tarot. But I love this artwork. Yeah, they're all pretty mundane. Just kind of not giving you anything from the expressions on their faces as some other tarot decks, but I just love the artwork in this. The Hangman. So this cardstock is sturdy. It's gonna, because of the like plastic coating, it's going to stand up to heavy shuffling. They are quite large for my hand, so I kind of have to do a side shuffle with them, and split them up and side shuffle them, because they are larger than a tarot deck. And you see it covers practically my whole hand. But you see, oh, look at the Devil card. So again, straddling, beginner, intermediate deck. This does not come with any sort of a little white book or guidebook of any kind, so you would have to know your meanings or have a good book by your side to, if you're beginning to learn the meanings. But yeah, another great deck. Rider-Waite-Smith clone for the most part. So that is the Efflorescent Tarot. You can get it off of Etsy. It's not a mass market deck. I believe, yeah, it says on the back of the box, this deck is printed at a small family press in Minnesota and assembled with much care in Peony's kitchen. For more information about this deck, visit peonyarcher.com. So check Etsy and peonyarcher.com if you're interested in the Efflorescent Tarot. Now, I am a very new channel. If you got any value from this video, it's supposed to show my deck collection, but also I'm trying to put the decks in categories so it doesn't get too overwhelming. So this is the beginner / intermediate decks in my collection. We'll go on to some other things like systems that are their own thing, some intermediate or advanced decks. We'll go into oracle decks, affirmation decks in my collection. Try to split it up. And I hope you enjoyed this. And let me know in the comments, what do you think? If you have any of these decks, do you think, have I moved the needle, one way or the other for you? What your experience has been working with these decks? And if you're in my age demographic, I'd like to know what you feel about having, the 50 plus or 45 plus, even 40 plus age demographic, not really, represented. So yeah, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you, and I thank every one of my subscribers if you took the time to look at this long video. I appreciate you so much. Until next time, have a beautiful day.